My name is Aaron, and at 29 years old. When I told him he was being too close with his female best friend, he said, "You're insecure. She's been in my life longer than you." Then added, "If you make me choose, I choose." I just packed my stuff and left. 2 weeks later, he was at my door sobbing. I never thought I'd be writing one of these posts. I've always been more of a lurker, but here we are. I met Steve 3 years ago at a friend's wedding. He was the best man. I was a bridesmaid. Classic story, right? We hit it off immediately. He was smart, funny, handsome, and fiercely loyal, a trait I admired at the time. We moved in together after 18 months. I genuinely thought he was the one. Enter Maya, his best friend since college. Look, I'm not one of those women who think men and women can't be friends. I have male friends. But something about Maya always felt off. She'd show up at our apartment unannounced, text him constantly, inside jokes that made me feel like a third wheel in my own relationship. I brushed it off as me being overly sensitive. The breaking point came 2 months ago. I got home early from a canceled meeting and found her on our couch. Not doing anything sexual, just his head on her shoulder, her arm around him, watching some show they'd apparently been binging together while I was at work. The way they jumped apart when I walked in told me everything. "We were just watching TV," Steve said, like I was being ridiculous. That night, I tried talking to him calmly, rationally. I explained how their dynamic made me uncomfortable, how the constant texting, the lunch dates, the way she'd touch his arm when they laughed, it all felt like emotional cheating. His response, "You're being insecure. Maya has been in my life longer than you. We've been through everything together. If you're asking me to choose between my best friend and my jealous girlfriend, then I choose." He didn't even finish the sentence, just looked at me with this cold expression I'd never seen before. I said, "No need to finish. I get it." I packed my essentials that night. He didn't try to stop me. Actually seemed relieved. 2 weeks later, he was at my door at 11 p.m., mascara-less eyes red and swollen, sobbing so hard he could barely speak. Turns out the moment I left, Maya made her move, and when he reciprocated, she told him she wasn't ready for a relationship and that she valued their friendship too much to risk it. The kicker? She'd been dating someone else for 6 months, never mentioned him once. Steve wanted me back. Said he'd been blind, that I was right, that he'd cut her off completely. I let him talk for 20 minutes on my doorstep before I finally said, "I'm not your second choice. I'm nobody's backup plan." I closed the door. Haven't spoken since. But that's not where this story ends. Update 1. I've been getting a lot of DMs asking for updates. Buckle up, because this gets messy. After I turned Steve away that night, I thought that was it. Clean break. Move on with my life. I was wrong. First came the texts, dozens of them apologizing, begging, promising he'd change. I didn't respond. Then the calls. Then showing up at my work. My coworker Jake had to walk him out when he wouldn't leave the lobby. I was this close to getting a restraining order when suddenly, nothing. Radio silence. I figured he'd finally gotten the message. Nope. About a month after the doorstep incident, I got an angry call from our old landlord. Remember, we'd been living together in Steve's apartment. I'd moved out and was crashing with my sister while apartment hunting, but my name was still on the original lease. The landlord told me rent was a month late and that if it wasn't paid in full, he was starting eviction proceedings and sending collections after both of us. "What are you talking about?" I said. "I moved out over a month ago. Steve should be paying." That's when I learned what he'd done. When I'd emailed the landlord about getting my name taken off the lease, Steve had called him. He told him we were working through some personal issues and that I was just cooling off at my sister's. He claimed removing my name would be detrimental during a sensitive time and hinted at emotional issues that made the landlord legally hesitant to change the lease without my direct in-person consent. He was using my absence to legally bind me to him. But the landlord was done being patient. During a recent inspection for a water leak, he'd seen the state of the apartment. It was being neglected. Scuff marks on the walls, food stains on the carpets, a general state of disarray that went way beyond normal wear and tear. It wasn't a calculated plot to stick me with a bill. It was the fallout of Steve unraveling, and I was still legally on the hook for it. His plan, I realized, was to create a 5-alarm fire. Eviction, collections, damage to my credit, so massive that I'd have to interact with him to solve it. He was engineering a crisis to force me back into his orbit. I had to take a half day off work, meet with the landlord, and provide a signed affidavit, utility bills in my name at my new address, and a copy of my sister's lease with me listed as an occupant. He was furious at Steve. He agreed to release me from liability, but I'd have to testify if Steve fought the eviction. I thought I was finally untangled from the mess. I was wrong. Then Maya showed up at my sister's place. Update 2. Maya looked rough. Unwashed hair pulled into a messy knot, dark circles under her eyes, clothes wrinkled like she'd slept in them. My sister answered the door, took one look at her, and called me over. "We need to talk," Maya said. My first instinct was to slam the door in her face, but something in her expression stopped me. This wasn't the smug, overly familiar woman from my apartment. This was someone who looked cornered. We went to a coffee shop, public place, neutral ground. "Steve's trying to ruin my life," she started, her voice strained. "Here's what I learned. The story Steve told me on my doorstep was a lie. He had made a move on Maya the night I left. But her rejection wasn't as simple as valuing their friendship. Her boyfriend Alex found out about the attempt. Alex didn't just break up with her, he went nuclear. He got hold of texts between Maya and Steve. Real texts, but one Steve was now reframing. Months of "I miss you" and "can't wait to see you." Messages that seemed innocent at the time now looked like evidence of an emotional affair. Alex sent screenshots to their entire circle of friends. But here was the twist Maya came to tell me. Most of Steve's claims were fabrications built around kernels of truth. He cropped group photos to make them look like dates. He told everyone Maya had been pursuing him for years and had sabotaged his relationship with me, that she'd finally made her move only to discard him. "Why?" I asked. "Why would he do that to you? I thought you were best friends." Maya let out a bitter, hollow laugh. "Because I didn't give him what he wanted. That night you left, he tried to kiss me. I stopped him. I told him he was making a huge mistake, that he loved you and was throwing away something real." She pulled out her phone and showed me texts from Steve after that night. They were unhinged, accusations that she'd led him on for years, that she'd ruined his relationship with me on purpose, that she owed him a chance. "When I kept rejecting him," she said, "he turned on me." "I'm not asking for your sympathy," Maya said, looking me straight in the eye. "I crossed boundaries. I enjoyed the attention, the emotional intimacy. I was a shitty friend to you. I messed up, but I need your help." "For what?" I asked. "He's telling everyone I'm a predator, that I manipulated him. Alex thinks I'm a monster. I need someone, anyone, to corroborate the timeline, that he came on to me after you left." She wasn't there for my forgiveness. She was there to save herself. And she was warning me. "He's been talking to our mutual friends," she said. "Spinning some story about how you were controlling, emotionally abusive, that you isolated him." She shook her head. "He's building a narrative, and he's good at it." I'd already started getting weird looks. Friends who were suddenly busy. Invitations that quietly stopped coming. It was all starting to make sense. Steve was trying to destroy my reputation to justify the breakup, just like he was destroying Maya's for rejecting him. But in his rage, he made one crucial mistake. Update 3. I need to be clear about something. I never set out for revenge. I just wanted to be left alone. But when someone is actively trying to burn your life down, you don't get to stay passive. You have to become a firefighter. Steve's mistake was Natalie. Natalie was his friend from college, the one who'd been a groomswoman at the wedding where we met. She reached out to me, horrified. She didn't have recordings, no binders full of screenshots. It was simpler than that. She had a conscience. She'd been Steve's confidant for years, and it had finally won. According to Natalie, Steve's obsession with Maya was nearly a decade old. He'd been in love with her since sophomore year. He dated other women, including me. But Maya was always the endgame in his mind. He genuinely believed they were soulmates, that any other partner, mine or hers, was just a temporary obstacle. Natalie had watched him subtly sabotage other relationships, but she'd never seen anything on this scale. The lies about me being abusive were the last straw. She gave me what I needed, context and confirmation. She forwarded me a single old email from 3 years ago where Steve detailed his plan to get closer to a then-single Maya and how frustrated he was that she saw him as just a friend. It was a pattern. The final piece came from Maya. In her effort to clear her own name, she found out from a mutual friend that Steve had been venting on a private blog and a semi-anonymous Reddit account. She didn't know the username, but she knew the subreddits. It took me one evening of searching for key phrases from our breakup to find it. He'd been sloppy, using details that were too specific. He was posting his version of events, getting validation from strangers about his controlling ex-girlfriend and his toxic best friend who led him on. I didn't engage publicly, that was his game. Instead, I built my case. I organized the timeline, my breakup with him, his showing up at my door, the call from the landlord, Maya's story, the text she showed me, the old email from Natalie. I sent a single comprehensive email to a small group of our closest mutual friends, the ones who'd gone quiet, the ones who deserved the truth. I didn't attack him. I just laid out the facts, attached the proof, and let them draw their own conclusions. The fallout wasn't explosive. It was quiet. One friend called me to apologize. Then another. The story unraveled. Alex eventually got the full picture, and while he didn't get back together with Maya, he did tell people she wasn't the monster Steve painted her to be. Last I heard, after the eviction went through and his friend group dissolved, Steve moved back in with his parents 2 states away. His blog and Reddit account were deleted. I found a nice apartment downtown. I got a promotion at work. I started dating someone new, someone whose best friend is a golden retriever. Here's the thing that still gets me. I loved him, really loved him. And part of me used to wonder if things could have been different if I'd handled that first conversation better. No, that's the trap. Making yourself responsible for someone else's choices. Steve chose Maya. Steve chose manipulation. Steve chose to destroy lives rather than accept rejection. I just chose to walk away. And when he tried to drag me back into the fire, I chose to find a fire extinguisher. Sometimes the best revenge isn't some elaborate scheme. Sometimes it's just telling the truth quietly to the people who matter and refusing to play the game at all. I don't know if this counts as pro-revenge. Mostly, I just defended myself. But for anyone dealing with something similar, document everything. Save every text. Build your case quietly. And when someone shows you who they really are, believe them the first time. Steve showed me that night on the couch. I just wish I'd paid attention sooner. There's a strange quiet that comes after everything burns down. Not relief, not victory. Just silence where chaos used to live. For a long time, that silence scared me. I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop, for another message, another accusation, another crisis engineered to pull me back in. It never came. What did come was clarity. I stopped replaying conversations in my head, stopped wondering what I could have said differently, how I could have been softer, more patient, more understanding. I stopped trying to solve a puzzle that was never mine to solve. I learned that love isn't proven by how much disrespect you're willing to tolerate. Loyalty isn't choosing someone who refuses to choose you. And walking away doesn't mean you failed. It means you finally listened to yourself. I don't hate Steve. I don't forgive him either. He's just a chapter that ended the moment I closed the door and didn't open it again. My life is quieter now, healthier, mine. And that's the real ending.